Tyres. I've singled out tyres as one of the elements because it's a fundamental. People new to overlanding will, generally speaking, think vehicle first. They won't even think type of vehicle. The type of vehicle should be chosen using the mission first process that I've already taught you. But actually, what is even more important than vehicle are the tyres. And the reason for this is that newcomers will often use the vehicle that they've already got, that they're already familiar with. And they'll say, let's give it a try with what I've got. A, see if I like it perhaps. B, see, and it's a really good idea, see what I need, what are the shortcomings of the vehicle, what are the shortcomings of the equipment that I already have. I really think it's a fantastic idea to start with what you've got. But for one thing, tyres. If you are taking your car, no matter what it is, even if it's a four-wheel drive, with the tyres that have been supplied with the car out of the showroom, 9.5 times out of 10 those tyres are going to be inadequate and unsuitable for anything but very smooth gravel and nothing further. And the reason for that is that they are designed to be economical and quiet. Generally speaking, that's what four-wheel drive manufacturers will supply with their vehicles, because they do massive deals with tyre makers and they get the tyres cheaper. If they buy lots and lots of them, they'll also buy a cheaper tyre, and they'll buy a tyre that will give them good economics. In other words, low fuel consumption and low noise, so the car rides better. And most manufacturers, those tyres are absolutely fine for the purposes that the vehicle was primarily designed for, and that is driving around town and maybe some long distance asphalt driving. That's what it is, even a four-wheel drive. I'll give you an example. Would have been about 98, 99, Toyota South Africa loaned me an 80 series. Now, if ever there was a vehicle that was designed for rough travel, rough roads, it's an 80 series. All right, it's far better, stronger than, say, equivalent vehicles, smaller SUVs. Let me give you some current modern examples. Pajero Sport, Toyota Fortuner, Ford Everest. Okay, these are light-duty SUV four-wheel drives. This was a Land Cruiser. Now, Toyota at the time had done a deal with Dunlop tyres, and they were fitted with a tyre called a Dunlop Grand Trek. Then the Grand Trek was a poor tyre. Now it's not a bad tyre actually, but then it was poor. It was actually bad. I mean, the punctures, it couldn't take the rigors of a gravel road. Even a gravel road would tear it to pieces. And yet it was supplied with a Land Cruiser 80. See, the manufacturers are not thinking about you if you're thinking about overlanding. Okay, they're thinking about selling lots and lots of cars and getting tyres that are suitable enough. Standard tyres are not suitable enough. So now you've got a car, doesn't matter what it is, and you're saying, I'm going to do some overland. You don't need a four-wheel drive to try this. You can do it in a two-wheel drive, you can do it in a van, you can do it in anything. If it's got all-wheel drive, try that. But you have to change the tyres. You have to find all-terrain or mud terrain or robust tyres. Now, because you're going to be doing two things. You're going to be driving it in terrain that is going to be demanding on the tyres because of the surface, stones, rocks, gravel, mud, could be snow, okay, and you're going to be heavy because you're going to be carrying some water, some camping equipment and some food. Heavier than normal, more challenging terrain, more potentially tire damaging terrain than normal. You have to change the tires. So there are parts of Overland Workshop where I go into tires in great amount of detail in the course called Overland Operations. Now, operating a vehicle overland talks in huge amount of detail in terms of, well, what tire do you get? These, for example, are they're made by Falcon. They make some good tires. It's a mud terrain tire, and I choose the mud terrain not because I'm driving on mud, but because they're very strong. I am right now in an incredibly remote environment. I'm only carrying one spare, and I'm only carrying one spare because these tires are extremely strong. The chances of me getting 2 irreparable punctures is very, very low indeed. So I've decided actually carrying one spare is sufficient because I've mitigated the risk. I have taken a stronger tire, okay, I've taken away some of the risk of tire damage, okay. I have also I was going to say modern. When I first did overlanding, these things didn't exist. These are basically vulcanized rubber strings that you can insert into if you get a thorn or a nail or something into a tire. You can repair a tire, and I have done it without even taking it off the car. You just jack it up and fill the hole with one of these things. And in other words, if I do get a thorn, unlikely here in Australia, nail, possible, in the tire, I can repair it and continue driving on that tire, or at least have a serviceable tire to use as a spare. Days gone by, I never had that. I would go out on a trip knowing that the chances of destroying one of my tires, destroying it was high, let alone getting a puncture or two, destroying it, and I only carried one spare because I had no practical means at the time of carrying 2. I did fine. I did absolutely fine. So you might be saying, do I need 2 spares? In extreme environments where you know that your tires are, there is a reasonable possibility that you might lose 2 tires, then I would say consider it. I'm no longer carrying 2 tires in this vehicle, and my Africa vehicle that I'm building right now in Africa, you can catch that on my YouTube channel. We're building one of these, a troop carrier, in South Africa. And I'm collecting it by the time you do this course. I may already have driven it. That'll be April, May 2024, and I'll be doing an expedition. I'm telling you about that because I'm only carrying one spare, and I'm carrying all terrains, not mud terrains. They're not as strong. And the reason being is that if I think about my very, very long career in overlanding, how many times have I needed 2 spares, or would have loved to have had 2 spares? I can think of one time where I was grateful for a second spare, but I didn't use it. It was just that I completely destroyed a tire, and I still had another serviceable tire that was a spare, and I could continue on my trip. So here's the thing with 2 tires. If you're carrying 2 spares and you destroy one, you've still got a spare. Whereas, if you destroy a tire, and destroying a tire is typical, would be a deep gash through the sidewall of the tire. Would be typical of destroying a tire. I then can't use that tire for anything. I now don't have a spare. If I destroy another one, I've got a problem. But again, how many times has that ever happened to me? It's never happened to me. So, I'm willing to take a risk on that. But my message to you is, don't take the risk. In the section on risks, preparation and risks, I talk about mitigating risks. And think about that. Mitigate the risk of tire failure. What is the most likely problem that you will have on your trip? you will have failures of your tyres. If you do not have suitable tyres, you will have a major problem with tyres. It's not a question. You will eventually have a major catastrophic failure of one of your tyres. And here's the problem. Damage to tyres doesn't necessarily mean that they deflate. So you might deflate your tyres by because you're traveling on soft ground and sand, and you now deflate your tyre, right? Which is common practice. You now damage the tyre because you've over deflated it, and the tyre was unsuitable for that, because as you deflate a tyre, it flexes more and gets much hotter. If you drive too fast with a deflated tyre, it gets hot. So again, what happens is that you damage the tyre, but it doesn't mean to say that the tyre goes flat as you damage it. So now what you do is you pump the tyre back up because you're back on the asphalt and you're doing 100, and that damaged tyre lets go. And it lets go in a catastrophic way. So bad that it could kill you. Don't take the tyre thing lightly. That is why it is a separate subject in this course. You take your tyres and the operation of your tyres and the management of their pressures very, very seriously, because your life and the life of your family depends upon it. I really don't need to say any more on the subject.